All right, we will go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. We're excited to have you on our webinar here today. I'd like to acknowledge this is truly a global webinar, and we're excited to have everyone on today. Those of you who are up early and those of you who are staying up late, thank you. We greatly appreciate your time here with us today. My name is Bryant Lepre. For those of you who don't know me, I am our programs director here at the Apparel Impact Institute, and I am joined by my colleague Kurt Kipka, Vice President of the Apparel Impact Institute, and we will be presenting for you today. Before we jump in here, just a couple minor things to share with you guys. This session is being recorded and we will make it available after the webinar. The audience for today, the webinar is really ideal for supply chain practitioners from brands and suppliers who are looking to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and water use in production facilities, who are also looking to participate in Apparel Impact Institute programs. Another thing of note is that coming up next week, we have a chemistry and wastewater webinar as well. That will be July 22nd from 7 to 8 a.m. Pacific time. Very similar, it's ideal for supply chain practitioners from brands and suppliers who are aiming to reduce the impacts of hazardous chemicals in the supply chain while leveraging the HIG FEM and ZDHC tools. Our time together today will cover three primary areas. We'll talk about the Apparel Impact Institute. We'll cover our 2020 programming, how to get involved, cover some key dates and next steps, as long as a Q&A session. So at any time, if you would like, there is a question and answer feature within the webinar here. Feel free to submit your questions there, and I will monitor throughout the webinar and do our best to answer those both in real time or at the end of the session today. So at this time, I will go ahead and hand it over to Kurt.
Great, thanks, Bryant. I just started my video, so hopefully that works and we have a stable connection. Thanks everyone again for joining. Bryant mentioned that we appreciate the global audience that we have today. However, with the recording, we're happy to share this for both you and your colleagues after we complete the webinar. I'm going to share a little bit about Apparel Impact Institute before Bryant dives into the programs. But please just do know that for more information about AII in general, feel free to reach out to me directly. My email address will be provided at the end of the meeting. We also have a website available and we are social also. So follow us on all the major social media outlets. With that, I'll go into the next slide. At Apparel Impact Institute, our focus is to identify, fund, scale, and measure impact opportunities in the apparel sector. What that means for us is finding the best-in-class opportunities for improvement projects that need unlocking, essentially. A good example of that is programs that we've taken forward from a chemistry, wastewater, water, and energy standpoint in partnership with organizations like Natural Resources Defense Council, a US-based NGO with an opportunity to utilize proof of concept programs that essentially need an impetus, a platform for global expansion. And that's really what represents our program's team and organization today, while we look to continue to find new opportunities for expansion of programs, technology, and resources that are going to tip the scale in this industry towards the types of targets that the industry has. It's our role as the Apparel Impact Institute to create that network of organizations and programs around aligned, standardized tools that will unlock the hotspot opportunity improvements that are identified through the industry's tools. With that, next slide. Also, in alignment with the industry overall and the objectives for both stakeholders that AII closely partners with, but also the industry at large. Our programs to date focus on energy, water, chemistry, and materials. We continue to evaluate where the focus of our activities goes over time. However, as of now, our current focus is on these key areas of development, both in terms of programmatic expansion, which Bryant will share with you, but also further program development, identifying white space opportunities in these areas of work and trying to identify either partnerships, technologies, or projects that are going to help us to achieve some of the barriers that exist for the industry following these impact category lines. Next slide. At AII, we view ourselves as a catalytic organization. The organization itself is meant to multiply the funds across brands. That is to aggregate branding funding that enables collective impact to take shape. What that means for brands who partner with us is cost savings for program deployment. If there's an opportunity for improvement within the supply chain, typically a number of brands work with that facility or work with a specific supplier. And by shared costs across those programs, it enables an ultimate cost reduction for program deployment and also development practices. We also seek to accelerate the reduction of negative impacts in the supply chain through this approach. By pooling resources and developing scaled program models, the ideas, the opportunities for improvement are achievable in a much faster fashion. We also catalyze the industry using philanthropic and funders who are interested in seeing this work proceed quickly. Bryant will share this model with you a bit further, but we like to bring in philanthropic donors or funders who are interested in the industry at large to achieve the targets that exist and layer on that funding in order to drive down the overall cost of programming, but also to catalyze the industry for moving faster and achieving impacts on a scaled basis in an expedited fashion. And finally, we collaborate. That is with the supply chain to drive program demand. We work very closely with program partners, stakeholders across the industry in order to generate the type of business cases and impact cases for the appropriate level of collaboration for peer-to-peer learning and shared resources that are going to essentially bring to life the types of programming that are necessary for expansion. Last, but certainly not least, we coordinate amongst the industry. That is most importantly with practitioners who have done this before. In the case of our Mill Improvement Alliance, we've identified key partners for setting the standard and guidance for the industry to proceed in measurement and also facilitation of impact programs, both in terms of the development of how programs are deployed, but also in the expansion of where programs go. With that, I'd actually like to shift to the next slide and talk a little bit more about some key partnerships as it relates to Apparel Impact Institute. That is our ecosystem of organizations. Many of you may be aware that AII originated as a spinoff of the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. And so we partner very closely with that entity as the platform for setting criteria for environmental performance. And the HIGCO platform provides the technology to deploy that criteria in a way that's measurable and also identifiable for the industry at large. Where AII fits in is at the impact improvement aspects of this ecosystem, where we can derive data using the HIGCO platform and SAC criteria. Hotspots are identified for further improvement and assessment mechanisms that enable AII to identify further program deployment and development, whether that be on a geographic basis or in a particular subject matter. And that will continue to be the role of AII as we proceed in this ecosystem of organizations to be the improvement arm of this trifecta ecosystem of entities that will essentially proceed as an ecosystem of organizations that carry out impact for the industry, both in terms of setting targets, but also achieving those targets via measurable results. Here's a glimpse at some of the key partnerships that AII has First, our founding and strategic partners include GAP, Arvind Mills, the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, Target, IDH, and HSBC. Also PVH as well. Those organizations provided the seed funding to initiate the organization. We also work with a number of programmatic partners. Many of you are on the call today. Thank you for your ongoing commitment to our theory of change, and not to mention our philanthropic partners as well. These are organizations who, as I mentioned previously, have bought into the theory of change for AII as a convener and aggregator of the industry, bringing match funding to programmatic concepts and development dollars to new ideas and concepts that AII takes forward. So without further ado, again, I encourage you to reach out to our team for more information about aspects of our organization and how to get involved. Bryant is going to do a deep dive into programs, and so I will gladly turn it over to him to provide some background and opportunities for how you can get involved in this year. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Kurt. Before I dive in here, I will just take a moment. If anybody has questions they want to submit, again, there's a question and answer feature. Please go ahead and submit those. Before I dive in, I will just pause for a brief moment in case anyone wants to submit a question that is on their mind right now. All right, I will go ahead and start to proceed into our 2020 programming conversation here. So before we get into some of the specifics of what we'll cover later this year, we thought it'd be important to cover details of our programming model and how the Apparel Impact Institute approaches the continuous improvement cohort model that we've established. And so this is over a typically a 12 to 18 month period of time that really is built around collaboration to bring brands, facilities, and NGOs or different organizations together. And so it really is centered around the facility, which you see in the center of the slide here, where we start with an opportunity assessment to really try to understand the potential that exists within the facility for improvement and reduction opportunities for energy and water. From there, we go into some benchmarking and KPIs based on the insights that we've gleaned, focused on then diving in with the experts. So one of the keys to the program that we have at the Apparel Impact Institute is leveraging experts within the industry to pull together their knowledge, to bring that to the facilities, to share with the brands through learning workshops. So in the spirit of collaboration, leveraging experts, the facilities and the brands together to provide coaching and mentoring and allowing facilities as well to work together and share ideas and best practices. As a part of our model, we have a prioritized action plan, we call it. And so the facility is required to put together an action plan based on the experts' insights, sharings, and learnings that they have gleaned. And then from there, the exciting part is the project implementation. So this is where the facilities then take the insights and the learnings that they've gathered and look to implement projects, things around maybe steam trap efficiency, insulation, process improvements, etc., are typically things that come from the recommendations that the facilities then implement. And that usually takes about a 6 to 8 month period. So again, if we're looking at a 12 to 18-month cohort-based model, you know, half of that time almost is really focused on the actual implementation and verification. So as we continue through the process here to recognize and report, this is really focused on once those implementations have finished, we'll bring the experts back for an on-site verification and validation to look at the implementations and the things that have occurred in the facility to ensure that they've been done, but then also validate the results to ensure that it's rooted in data and that those are verified results. So that is the model that the Apparel Impact Institute uses for all of our programming logic that we deploy. Another thing that is worth noting around our programming model is the Apparel Impact Institute has in-house programming or programs that we actually execute. So for those of you who are familiar with the Clean by Design program that was originally founded in 2007 with the NRDC, that program now exists within Apparel Impact Institute that we manage and execute, but we also have key partnerships that Kurt covered earlier with many organizations around the world, which gives us a global reach who do very similar work in programs as we do. And so that's important to note as well. So this is specific to the Apparel Impact Institute, our internal program. The other part of our program that we offer up is a 1/3 funding model, as we call it. So if you look at the way this works, the brands, the facilities, and public funding, such as family foundations, development organizations, corporate foundations. So that public funding bucket is really focused around philanthropy. And we believe this is really holistically pulling collaboration together. So the brand, the mill, and philanthropy all coming together in a collaborative way to fund the program to allow everyone to work together to have collective impact. And so that is why we have a 1/3 funding model for the programs that we execute. Now, if we shift into the program offerings that the Apparel Impact Institute has, we look at this in a number of different categories or program areas. So first, we have our wet processing, energy, and water efficiency, typically referred to as Tier 2. So this is a mill improvement program that will cover best practices around energy and water, coupled with hot spots, such as like carbon within your supply chain at the Tier 2 level. So this is again with wet processing. We also are in the process now of rolling out a Tier 1 or a non-wet processing energy efficiency program. So this is for facilities that might be cut and sew, footwear, etc. I mentioned next week we have a chemistry program. So this is around best practices and procedures for looking at the inputs to reduce chemical use within Tier 2 facilities. Later this year, we're looking at renewable energy pilots to look at ways to work with both Tier 1 and 2 facilities around the world. So this is agnostic of wet processing or non-wet processing. And last but not least, we have a programming arm focused on research. So currently, we are working with the World Resources Institute around a climate roadmap to net zero for the industry. So that's in progress right now with results that will be published later this year. As I previously mentioned, the Clean by Design program exists within the Apparel Impact Institute. And these are results to date that we've seen from our Clean by Design Tier 2 Stage 1 program that many of you are familiar with. So the results to date, we've seen a 10.6% energy reduction, almost a 10% greenhouse gas emissions reduction, a 13% water reduction. And the exciting thing is all of these implementations that the facilities have taken, which is well over 100 facilities to date, have seen an average payback of just over a year, so 14 months. Just, again, highlighting the low to no cost best practices that exist for Tier 2 facilities. And we've seen over 1,000 action items implemented. So again, this could be anything from replacing steam traps to insulating pipes to boiler efficiencies. So facilities have taken on these actions and they have spent well over $50 million US collectively to date. And just to highlight the investments that these Tier 2 facilities have made. If we shift gears now, so that was looking back, and we start to look ahead now, highlighting some of the existing cohorts and the exciting things that we have going on currently. So we have well over 100 facilities currently in existing cohorts or programs that we're offering right now. And you can see here projected end dates based on each of the cohorts, along with how many facilities are involved in the programming and where they are at in the actual program in itself. So when we talk about 2018 Wave 2 mainland China, for example, final site verifications are where the experts are going back to the sites to visit and validate those implementations that have actually occurred And then you can see here 2018 Taiwan all the way through our 2019 fall mainland China and Taiwan program are all in the implementation phase as well. And the exciting thing here is towards the bottom of the slide here, there's a couple of things to highlight. So our chemistry pilot in India, which we'll cover more about next week, very exciting results and things happening within that program. Our Clean by Design Plus program, or what we're going to refer to moving forward as our Tier 2 Stage 2 program, will be focused on for 2019. So again, when we think about Clean by Design, the historical program that we've run was focused on Tier 2 facilities. With our 10 best practices, the intent with Clean by Design Plus is to go deeper, to provide more expertise, help facilities look at goal setting, science-based targets, in things that are maybe beyond the 10 best practices. So it's going deeper. And then last but not least, on the bottom of the slide, we have a Tier 1 pilot in Vietnam, which just launched this week. Very excited to be working on this with 10 facilities. And so as we look to the later part of this year, we'll begin recruiting for a full cohort model as well. And I see there is a question that has just come up. Are any energy efficiency cohorts planned for Pakistan? And the short answer is yes, and I can cover a little bit more about that as we proceed through the presentation here, which is actually good timing. So as we think now about the 2020 cohort program offering, so this is specific to the Apparel Impact Institute programs that we are offering. The focus of today's webinar is energy and water. So things that aren't on this slide, the chemistry program, we have some new carbon hotspot mapping and activities that we're going to offer up as well. Those are not included here because those are a little bit outside the cohort model or not the focus of today's webinar. So what we have on the slide today is focused on the energy and water program. So for energy and water Tier 2 Stage 1, which is traditionally known as Clean by Design, we will have programming in mainland China, Taiwan, India, Vietnam, and Pakistan. Energy and water Tier 2 Stage 2, which some of you might know as Clean by Design Plus, will be in mainland China, Taiwan, and India. Energy and water Tier 1 Stage 1, which is going to be Clean by Design Tier 1, or the pilot that I had just mentioned, will be offered in mainland China and Vietnam. A couple quick disclaimers. As part of our work, we fully recognize the current business climate, along with the implications of COVID-19 that are happening and the changes that are rapidly evolving around the world. And so today we are just sharing what the plan is at this point in time, with the acknowledgement that this could absolutely change as the year progresses, but felt best to share as much information as we could as early as possible to allow brands and facilities as much time as things continue to rapidly change. The second call out is as part of some of the partnerships that we have around the world with existing organizations who do similar work to us, we do have additional locations under consideration or the opportunity to reach those locations. They include South Korea, Bangladesh, Italy, and locations in both North and South America. So as I mentioned on the previous slide, there were a couple of things that we didn't cover because they fall a little bit outside of our cohort model. However, as we've heard from both brands and facilities, there's existing and growing demand for some new support in the work that they're doing around supply chain mapping. And so there's 3 new offerings that we are bringing to the market: carbon hotspot mapping, carbon reduction opportunity mapping, and a carbon self-assessment. So carbon hotspot mapping and the carbon reduction opportunities go together. This essentially is going to be an analysis leveraging the Higg FEM data, where we can look through the information that exists. We can do a scrub of the data and ensure consistency. And then from there, we're able to map a brand's entire supply chain that they're supplying to us based on energy consumption, water consumption, coupled with those hotspot opportunities. So for example, a large facility that might be a high energy user with a high carbon footprint could rise to the top. The report will then help the brand understand opportunities for reduction, whether it's energy efficiency, renewables, or those types of activities within the supply chain. So it would be a robust Excel report highlighting those types of opportunities. The third and final offering that we're focused on bringing to the market this year in 2020 is a carbon self-assessment. So this is an opportunity where maybe a supplier is not leveraging the HIG FEM at this point in time, however, has access to their own energy information. So these resources from a simple questionnaire through a very robust assessment tool will help brands and suppliers achieve carbon targets in highlighting opportunities to then get involved and engaged in Apparel Impact Institute programming. So think of this as maybe an early stage assessment tool. Again, it's a simple questionnaire that a facility can answer, collect data and information, and then we can analyze the information based on the results that we've received. And there's a question about any plans to introduce these programs in Sri Lanka. At this point in time, we haven't had that location rise to the top or seen any brand or facility interest. That doesn't mean it's not possible. However, at this point in time, that location has not risen to the top for us in conversation, and would be happy to follow up after this webinar and have a little bit more discussion or conversation about that location and see if there is more opportunity to expand there. Another new thing that we're bringing to market here in 2020 is a little bit more of a back-end procedural thing. So there's two aspects that we've heard over the last couple of years from brands and facilities. The first is this idea of what we are calling co-nomination. So during the recruitment phase, a lot of times we'll get brand lists of facilities they would like to recruit, and there's a lot of overlap or duplication. We now have the opportunity to allow brands to co-nominate these facilities during that recruitment phase. And what this will allow then is the brands to collectively work together and split the brand program fee. And so we can do this up to 5 brands. So if during the recruitment phase here this year, if 5 brands submit the same facility, we can allow them the opportunity to all co-nominate and work together with that facility through any of the program offerings that we have. And so it's an opportunity to lower the cost for brands, but then also drive a deeper principle of collaboration that we believe in. The second offering that we're bringing to market this year is what we call mill connection. So we've experienced a lot of times as well, a facility, a brand will nominate a facility that is either currently in program or has finished our Clean by Design program and would like access to the facility's information. We are able to now do that to provide the information, the final report, the action plans with the facility approval that they'd be okay sharing that information. One caveat to this mill connection process is that if the mill or facility is still in program, we will make the final data available once that facility completes the program. So rather than co-nomination where there's a collaboration opportunity, mill connection will solely be based on the final reports and the information of a facility once they've completed the program. A couple things to highlight here, roles and responsibilities. So for the brand, as we think about this idea of collaboration and the continuous improvement model we have, the brands help recruit, enroll, and work with the facilities to get them engaged in our programming. There's a sponsorship fee, and they provide the team members and resources to support our program activities, and again, which is exciting. And so we're bringing the brand and the facility together to work together over the 12 to 18 month program. We have a number of meetings, whether it's participating in the on-site visits or the last verification visits, bi-monthly updates to the cohorts. There's a number of meetings and opportunities to get involved there. And then last but not least, supporting the facility along their journey is absolutely important and a really strong part of the programming that we have to bring the brand and the facility together to experience the improvements in the journey and the opportunities. So the support is very important, and the facilities greatly appreciate that. On the facility side of our programming, they're responsible for putting together a project team. We really like to see an executive leader involved, access to their facility and site to allow the expert team, our team, and if the brand would like to attend as well, to be on site. These are typically 1 to 2 day site visits for the first, and then about another 1 day at the end. Again, workshops, meetings, and e-training courses, whether these are in-person training sessions or remote offerings, bringing together the facilities in a cohort model. So if we have 20 facilities in a cohort, there's an opportunity for all 20 facilities to work together to share learnings and insight that they might have gleaned from the training that we offer. And then the last couple things here to focus on is again, the action plan, which is a critical component of the programming. It's putting together that work plan of what they would like to implement and what improvements around energy and water they would like to achieve. And then last but not least, the responsibility of submitting that final report to the experts who can then validate and assess that report itself. Now, an important aspect to highlight here before we wrap up and shift into a question and answer session is key dates and next steps for 2020. Again, we wanted to host today's conversation earlier as we look to our launch in November 18th of 2020. So the official cohort launch for all of our programming will again be November 18th. That said, if we back up now to some of the key steps. So right now we are in the brand recruiting phase. So brands that would like to get involved in 2020 programming with us, that window of time has begun, and we will be working on that through around September 25th. So this year we are introducing a new brand agreement. So this essentially is, if you think about a master services agreement, where we will issue addendums for every cohort. So in the past, working with brands, we issued commitment letters, very similar to what we did with the facilities. However, we will now be looking to do more of a master service agreement where we just issue addendums for every cohort rather than commitment letters. So that will be due September 25th. So that is the window for brand commitment this year, is between now and September 25th. Starting next week, July 20th, brands, to give them plenty of time, you are welcome to start having conversations or think about your facility list that you'd like to engage this year for any of the programming that we will be looking to offer. So that is July 20th through October 23rd when the facilities commitment letter is due. And we will be sticking with commitment letters for the facilities at this point in time as we look to programming for this year. December 18th, so again, as we think about the holistic programming model that we have, December 18th is when we'd like to start our technical experts and have those wrapped up by January or February of 2021. And again, this is to keep things moving and allow everything to hopefully happen prior to Chinese New Year holidays that are coming up earlier in 2021. So I'll pause here just for a moment as some key dates on the slide, but know that we will be following up with each brand individually in conversation, allowing you to think about facility lists. Let us know where you might be thinking. We'll provide a link to the webinar and the recording from today, as long as an overview of the program. It'll be a 2 or 3 page document highlighting much of what was covered here in the webinar today, along with pricing as well. So at this point, I see there's a few questions popping up, so I'll just give it a second and see what questions come in, and we can start to have a question and answer session here. So as the questions are coming in, one thing I would also like to note is that as part of our partnerships in different ways that the Apparel Impact Institute works, we have recently launched a partnership with the outdoor industry Association, their Climate Action Corps. So for those members who are climate action members that are on the webinar today, first of all, welcome. And we look forward to the opportunity to work with you as well this year on programming if you are ready to get engaged into the action phase of what the Climate Corps is offering. There is a question around mill connection and if the mill has the right to share the data with the brand under mill connection. And the answer to that is yes as well. So if there is a brand who would like to go directly to a facility, they have the opportunity to request that information as well. So that doesn't necessarily have to come through us. However, it does require the facility's approval prior to disclosure. All right, a couple more questions here. If we have a mill that joined Clean by Design in 2018, can it join again? And the answer is absolutely, and that is definitely the exciting part of the programming that we offer. So as you think about the historical Clean by Design, as we look forward to Clean by Design Plus, or again, Tier 2, Stage 2, that'd be a great opportunity now for that facility to think about going deeper so the experts can allocate more time. Instead of maybe 1 to 2 days, it could be a 2 to 3 day on-site assessment, help the facility with goal setting, working through maybe deeper analysis into their energy and water that we're seeing. So this is beyond the 10 best practices. So that is, as we look forward to the programming that we are looking to offer, it's not just the best practices, it's bringing to market now deeper insights, a longer life cycle of working with the facility in partnership with the brands and philanthropists. So yes, they can join. There's a question, is the fall 2020 program available in all countries you listed previously? China, Taiwan, India, Vietnam, and Pakistan? And the answer there is yes, it is. Another question, is there any plan to build a module on hig.org to track progress on water saving or energy on monthly, quarterly basis? That is a really good question. At this point in time, the Apparel Impact Institute has started to create our own brand dashboard. That said, I believe there is interest in trying to figure out how there could be integration. So as Kurt also shared earlier, again, that ecosystem with SAC, HIG, and AII. Those are just conversations that are very, very preliminary and haven't gone in depth, but there is interest and desire to figure out how that might look and what that could look like into the future. So at a high level, it's a conversation that's out there and worth having. We just have not taken that very far at this point in time. We do, however, again, have our own brand dashboard that we've created where brands can track the facility. They can see some of the results. The action plans are housed there. So that is something that we have just developed and launched as part of 2020. I will wait another minute here to see if there's any additional questions coming in here. While I'm waiting, one thing to clarify on the question around 2020 programming, again, just reiterating what we've covered today, those locations, China, Taiwan, India, Vietnam, and Pakistan, that is where the Apparel Impact Institute is going to offer our cohort-based model approach. That doesn't mean that we can't do programming in other locations in partnership with some other organizations that are doing, again, similar work to us. So again, the locations that were highlighted in today's presentation, where we are taking our cohort-based approach. But we can work with other organizations who are doing work very similar to what we do in partnership to offer up additional locations. All right, I will give it another few seconds here for any last minute questions that come in. Otherwise, we will head to closing. I see there's a question here. Can Clean by Design work to correlate energy and water savings on HIG? Short answer is yes. I know we have had facilities come to us after they've completed our program and explain and say, you know, they've seen an improvement in their HIG score. So as we think about the programming work that we have, yes, there is a correlation to energy and water savings and an improved HIG score. All right, there's a question on the current situation, when it will be restarted in full flow. So in terms of our existing cohorts and where the work is right now, we are taking a very country by country specific approach to our existing cohorts. So for example, work is re-begun in mainland China with actual site visits that are happening. I know India, given the current situation with the lockdowns, that is on hold for the time being. In Vietnam, the tier 1 pilot there is slowly starting to begin. Again, we're looking to coordinate site visits. However, it's dependent upon the facility's requirements. And so it's a very country by country specific approach right now with where the full flow and restarting of our programs is going. And again, we're starting early with a full recognition that things later in the year could change depending on the both business climate and the COVID-19 situation. All right, there's a question here. For the programs in various locations, is there a particular location with higher co-funding fee for brand and facility to join, e.g. Pakistan? If I understand the question correctly, the short answer is no. Our program fee is the same regardless around the world or what country we are offering our programs in, specific to the brand and the facility. And we will follow up with the webinar link, again, the overview sheet for 2020, along with costing as well for each of the brands after the call today. I will give it another couple seconds here. Otherwise, we will go ahead and wrap. Kurt, would you like to say anything in closing here?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to point out there's one question in the chat from Adrian. Is there visibility cross-referencing between AII and those mills that are Bluesign partners, accessing their data to help with hotspot mapping? Or are you solely focusing on your hotspot mapping on Bluesign partners or on non-Bluesign partners? So maybe just call out the collab and our partnership with Bluesign there.
Yes, so again, in work with the Outdoor Industry Association through their collab, that work is sort of broken out into a few different phases. Know, assess, and act. That know phase, supply chain mapping, is where we have a partnership, or at least through the OIA, that work is where Bluesign is involved in that work to provide an overview and sort of insights and cross-sharing of what those facilities might be in that work. So it would be through the OIA collab at this point in time.
Yeah, we're actually really excited about that collaboration, Adrian. It's a great move for the industry to align our programs with obviously a leader in program development, Bluesign. And then one last question that's coming through the chat, which is kind of strange, is both the Q&A and then the chat. Will you speak about 2021 January programming, and are you looking at setting up a team in country in Taiwan?
Do you want to go ahead and take that one, Kurt?
Yeah, sure. So in short, what we're speaking to today, you could refer to as 2021 January programming to a certain extent, given that the programs are launching in the end of this year, and then actual on-the-ground activities are beginning at the beginning of next year. However, similar processes will be underway as we look to 2021. And the reality is right now, we're just taking this one step at a time. The current business environment is leading us to be quite cautious in the way that we're establishing plans for going forward. However, we do know that Taiwan is going to be a long-term strategic location for us. Although while we will not be setting up an in-country team in Taiwan, we will be building out an in-country network within Taiwan, furthering our reach within that country, so that we can better serve the growing business there as we see the program go forward.
Yeah, great. Thank you for monitoring that chat feature as well. I can only see the Q&A side on my end.
No problem.
All right, and without any last questions, I think we will go ahead and close for the day. Again, as a reminder, next week we will be covering our chemistry and wastewater program. Look for an email from myself as we look to now engage brands one-on-one in conversations to start to figure out where 2020 will take those brands and what facilities they may look to work with. Again, thank you for those of you where it is early morning, those of you where it is late at night. We greatly appreciate your participation and listening in today, and we will be in touch. Otherwise, we will go ahead and end today's webinar if there is no last questions. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.